5 bone-chilling rules my father gave me for surviving rural North Dakota forever. The wind howled outside, a ghostly wail that sent shivers crawling up spines and rattled windows in their frames. It was North Dakota in winter, a landscape blanketed in white where shadows danced under a pale, merciless moon. Here, whispers of ancient secrets lingered like frost on the air, and the chill wasn't tea just from the cold. Stories of things that went bump in the night buzzed through the dark like the flurries swirling outside. Everyone knew the rules. Nathan always said, "Listen up." The first rule is simple: never stray from the dirt road after dusk. He spoke like it was gospel, the kind of teaching that made your skin tingle and your heart race. People in town claimed the woods weren't just trees, they were alive, watchful, as if daring you to step beyond the safety of the lines. A girl from high school had gone missing, leaving only her laughter echoing through the trees, swallowed whole like her spirit had been by the looming shadows. Families whispered that you could still hear her, calling out in the night, a voice soft as snow but filled with something darker. Then there was the second rule: avoid the old barn past the creek. The place smelled of rot mixed with an unshakable feeling of dread. Kids dared each other to go near, but no one ever returned for a second try. They swore they saw grotesque figures peeking through cracks where no light should dare to enter. Those who claimed to have stepped inside spoke of an overwhelming feeling of despair, like the darkness pressed down on their chests, stealing their breath. Their eyes wide, pupils dilated, they spout warnings that rang hollow and eerie in the silence. With each tale, Nathan's voice grew more gripping. The third rule echoed louder than the howling winds: if you hear the crows cawing, you need to run, fast. Crows were supposed to be messengers, but these weren't your everyday birds, these ones were harbingers of doom. When they cawed, it felt like a warning, a countdown to something unthinkable. No one knew for sure what happened if you didn't listen, but the nervous tremors in their voices said it all. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Nathan continued, the tension in his voice vibrating in the chilled air. The fourth rule is crucial: don't trust the eyes in the dark. He had heard stories of the glowing eyes watching from the brush, waiting for the moment you turned your back. In nightmares, Nathan imagined those eyes hungry for something more than mere attention. Was it a bear? A wolf? Or something even more sinister? The unknown crawled at the edges of sanity, and every creak in the old house sent jolts of fear through their spines. Finally, the fifth rule: never, ever forget the last words of the woman at the butcher shop. She had warned of things that lurked beneath the frost, the chilling premonitions of her cracked voice slipping like ice. They come for what belongs to them, she had said, her gaze piercing right through souls like a knife. The townsfolk sighed in resigned acceptance, they all felt it and half believed her. Danger lurked where no one looked, the very earth they walked on hid secrets deeper than they could imagine. The night loomed thick, filled with unspoken things and eyes unseen, and Nathan knew the moment was razor-thin. The air grew heavier and time seemed to freeze as he uttered one last thing: you'll know when it's too late. The temperature dropped even further. Frost crawled over the window panes, creating bizarre patterns that twisted like the faces in nightmares. Nathan shivered, though it wasn't just the cold. Something primal stirred deep within him. The stories flickered in his mind, images of horrors unspoken and truths unacknowledged. He sensed the unease in the room growing palpable, like the tug of a storm on the horizon. The shadows felt thicker, wrapping around him like an encroaching fog. The wind outside seemed to carry voices, faint echoes that teased the edge of his consciousness. Faces of those who had vanished danced through his thoughts. It was as if the night itself was calling. "Did you ever wonder why we have these rules?" whispered Mallory, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. What if they're not just warnings? What if there's something else? Nathan shifted uncomfortably. They're there for a reason. You have to listen. But what if, she hesitated, looking toward the window where the world outside became a swirl of darkness. What if the rules are there to keep us safe from something worse? A tension-filled silence fell over them. Each heartbeat thudded louder than the last. The restless whispers of the wind bolstered Mallory's words, and Nathan wrestled with doubt. Had their parents, their elders, woven these rules from thin air, or was there a real horror they masked? Suddenly, a screech shattered the night's quiet. The unmistakable caw of crows pierced through the howling wind. Nathan's heart raced as he shot up, whispering urgently, "We need to go. Now." Mallory scrambled to her feet, panic igniting her movements. They bolted for the door, but just as they reached for the handle, a ghostly chill swept through the room, freezing them in place. The air thickened, wrapping around them like a serpent tightening its grip. "Wait." Mallory's voice trembled. "What about the barn? The old barn past the creek?" "We can't go there." Nathan felt the weight of her fear, but desperation pushed him onward. "We have to get away from here. If those crows are cawing, it means something is coming." Once outside, the cold nearly knocked the breath from their lungs, and they stumbled forward as the wind hissed around them like ghostly laughter. They darted toward the road, but Nathan's gaze was drawn to the tree-line, where shadowy forms shifted just beyond the reach of the moonlight. He could feel the eyes again, not just watching but measuring, waiting. "Do you see that?" he whispered, stopping in his tracks. "I don't stop for anything," Mallory shouted, pulling at his arm. But Nathan felt rooted, as if the very ground beneath him held secrets he desperately needed to uncover. The crows cawed again, louder this time. It echoed in his bones, a frantic drum that urged him to flee. But his instincts screamed that there was something important, something he needed to unveil hidden within those depths of night. "What if they're trying to warn us?" Nathan's voice cracked. "What if we're not supposed to run?" Before her answer could form, a flicker of movement in the trees caught her eye, a figure gliding between the trunks. It was shrouded in darkness, its form nearly blending into the shadows. The air grew heavy, the tension near unbearable as it stepped closer. "Run!" Mallory gasped, but Nathan remained rooted, curiosity battling fear. There was a sudden rustling from the underbrush. Crows flew up from their perches, creating a tempest of wings that swarmed around them. And then came the sound. A low growl, deep and resonant, vibrated through the ground beneath their feet. The darkness had teeth, the moment hung in the air, suspended like a breath held too long. Nathan's heart raced. Had they crossed a line? As the figure emerged fully from the shadows, his mind reeled. The truth was closer than he had ever imagined. "What do they want?" he whispered, his voice nearly lost in the cacophony, and then, in the blink of an eye, a scream shattered the wind, cutting through the night in a way that felt unmistakable and unholy. What had they awakened? The figure stepped into the dim glow of the moonlight, and Nathan's heart stuttered in his chest. It was a girl, her features obscured by a veil of shadow and hair that hung like a curtain around her face. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly brightness, reflecting the storm brewing overhead. A sinister smile stretched across her lips, revealing teeth far too sharp, glimmering with an unnatural sheen. "What do you want?" Nathan choked out, his voice a mere whisper. She stepped forward, her movements fluid, almost predatory. "You've been warned, haven't you?" she replied, her voice smooth as silk, but laced with a razor's edge. "The rules. They are not just tales to scare little children. They bind you, they protect you. But sometimes, they crave a little chaos." Mallory clutched Nathan's arm, her panic palpable. "Leave us alone. We didn't do anything." "Oh, but you've done everything." The girl's smile widened, revealing more of those dangerous teeth. "You've come looking for answers, haven't you?" They don't want you to know the truth about the darkness that lingers in these woods. A sudden cacophony erupted, the crows circled above, their cries sharpening to a relentless screech. The trees groaned, swaying as if something beneath them stirred. Nathan's gut twisted. Whatever was hiding within that night, it was not just the girl before them. What truth? He managed to grit out. They want to be free, she hissed, and in that moment, her shadow flickered as though battling against some unseen force. But rules trap them. And those who break them? Well, they are the ones who must pay. With a flick of her wrist, the shadows coiled tighter, threatening to pull Nathan and Mallory into the abyss. You have transgressed. You stopped. You questioned. Now, you must decide how far you're willing to go to uncover what lies beneath. Let us go. Mallory screamed, pulling Nathan toward the path. The air around them thickened, tasting of dread and despair, trying to draw them in. Leave while you still can, the girl whispered, her voice barely above the roar of the wind decaying into silence. Turn back, or you'll be part of the darkness forever. Nathan felt an intense pull towards the tree-line. There was a temptation, an almost magnetic pull from beyond the shadows, beckoning him closer. The crows cawed in protest as if warning him against the lure. We can't, he whispered. What if we're meant to fight it? What if? What if we get ourselves killed? Mallory urged, her eyes wide with fear. But Nathan could feel it. The truth was there, almost tangible, simmering beneath the surface of the dark. That in a dizzying moment, he made a choice. We have to stay. We have to know. Stay. Mallory's voice rose in alarm. Nathan, don't. Before she could finish, a deafening clash echoed through the night, reverberating like thunder. The shadows danced wildly, and in an instant, the girl was gone, swallowed back into the darkness, leaving behind only a whisper. Make your choice. They stood frozen, the wind whispering, the crows spiraling in a frenzied updraft. Nathan felt the weight of the world pressing in on him, the gravity of his decision heavy on his shoulders, but as the winds howled and the ground trembled, one thing became painfully clear: they had stirred something much larger than themselves. A flicker of movement behind the trees caught Nathan's eye, a figure rooted to the earth, impossibly vast, casting a long shadow that stretched far beyond what seemed possible. And as it moved, the ground shook, its growl echoing like an ancient roar. What did we awaken? Nathan's voice quavered, the realization crashing over him like a wave, and then, without warning, the darkness surged forward. What came next was unimaginable. The earth beneath Nathan and Mallory trembled with an otherworldly energy, an echo of dread wrapping tightly around them. The towering figure behind the trees was no longer a mere shadow, it was alive, and it was coming. Mallory gripped Nathan's arm tighter, her nails digging into his skin. We need to run, she cried, her voice laced with terror. But Nathan couldn't move. The darkness felt as though it had a grip on his very soul, forcing him to stay anchored to the spot. We can't just run, he insisted, his voice barely a whisper, lost amid the rising wind. The ground shook again, and a low, guttural noise rumbled from the depths of the woods. As though sensing their indecision, the shadows surged forward, tendrils expanding like dark fingers reaching relentlessly toward them. Instinctively, Nathan took a step back, but Mallory pulled him forward, her fear igniting a spark of urgency. If we're going to fight this, we need to know what we're dealing with. Nathan shouted over the howling wind, the words spilling from him as he tried to mask his own fear. We have to find out what the girl meant. What girl? Mallory snapped, her voice high and tight as panic threatened to engulf her. That's not what matters right now. We're not prepared for whatever that is. But somewhere deep inside, Nathan felt a flicker of resolve. He could almost hear the whisper of secrets hidden in the cursed woods, echoes of voices lost, stories left untold. I think we're meant to understand it, he said, taking another step forward, inching toward the ever-looming shadows. Suddenly, a piercing screech pierced the night, cutting through the tension like a knife. The crows, driven into a frenzy, scattered from the trees, a cloud of flapping wings that obscured the moonlight. The figure lurking behind the trees seemed to feed off their terror, growing more menacing by the second. Then, as if willed by their unfolding calamity, the darkness snapped closer, and a form emerged. It was not humanoid, it was a distortion of nature, a tangle of shadow and echoes that threatened to swallow them whole. Eyes like burning coals glimmered within the inky mass, locking onto Nathan as if reading his very thoughts. "Choose wisely," a voice echoed, low and rumbling, blending with the rustling leaves. It echoed the girl's warnings, casting a shroud of urgency around them. Mallory's expression shifted from panic to desperation. "Nathan, don't. We're playing with forces we don't understand." But Nathan barely heard her. Something inside him yearned to push forward, to confront whatever truths lay hidden among the darkness. "If we're here to break the rules, we have to know what we're up against." As he took another step, the shadows coalesced into a ravenous maw, dragging tendrils of darkness toward them. The very air buzzed with tension, stinging with the promise of danger. "Stop!" Mallory shouted, a anguish piercing through her fear-stricken face. "It's going to consume us." Nathan's heart pounded, the weight of urgency and uncertainty colliding. One breath. One heartbeat. "I can't turn back now," he said, each word a battle against fear. A deafening roar erupted from the figure, a chorus of anguish and ambition that rattled the trees and shook Nathan to his core. Just then, an otherworldly light burst forth, illuminating the darkness for a fleeting moment, revealing what lay beneath: twisted branches, ancient symbols, and the remnants of those who had come before. And in that luminous instant, Nathan knew they weren't just facing a monster. They were confronting history. But what did that mean for them? As the shadows reared back, growing bolder, Nathan felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The moment of choice loomed larger than it had before. "Are you with me, Mallory?" he asked, voice trembling as the light began to fade. A heavy silence surrounded them, a choice pregnant with consequence. "Together," she finally replied, steeling herself against the grip of fear. But as they steadied themselves for what was to come, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just unraveled the very fabric of their reality. What awaited them beyond that darkness could either bind them into the very chaos they feared or unveil truths they never anticipated. And as the shadows surged again, Nathan and Mallory realized, the true game was just beginning. But did they have the strength to face what lay ahead? The shadows twisted like smoke, curling around Nathan and Mallory, threatening to consume their very essence. Nathan felt a surge of adrenaline, the kind that made fear feel alive, electric. He glanced at Mallory, her eyes wide, mirroring the chaos that surrounded them. "Now!" he shouted, unable to hear anything over the roar of darkness. It was as if the very woods were trying to swallow their cries. They surged forward, feet pounding the earth, but the ground beneath them felt alive, shifting. One moment it was solid, the next, it seemed to dissolve. Nathan stumbled, his heart racing, as roots coiling beneath the dirt threatened to ensnare him. "Keep moving!" Mallory cried, her voice breaking through the cacophony. They pushed into the heart of the forest, deeper and deeper, fighting against the shadows that wailed like banshees behind them. Each step felt like a weight added to a scale tipping toward despair. What were they running toward? Nathan couldn't let that question take root. He had to focus. Suddenly, the howling wind dropped to a haunting silence. Mallory halted, pulling Nathan to a stop as shadows overlaid the dirt path before them, forming symbols that glowed dimly under an invisible light. It spoke of ancient rites and forgotten rituals of a pact woven long ago. "What is this?" Mallory's voice trembled as she knelt beside the markings, her fingers tracing the symbols etched into the earth. "I don't know," Nathan admitted, his thoughts racing. "But maybe if we can understand it, no," she said sharply, pulling her hand away. "This isn't the time for riddles. We're in danger." But Nathan couldn't shake the sense of connection. Something about the markings called to him, whispering secrets just out of reach. "What if it holds the answers we need?" He pressed. What if we could break whatever holds this place in darkness? Mallory shook her head, frantically glancing back from where they had come. I can't stay here, Nathan. We have to find a way out. Before he could reply, a cold wind swept through the clearing, wrapping around them, pulling at their clothes. The shadows moved closer, their forms shifting, almost alive. Nathan's pulse quickened. Choose wisely echoed through the air again, the voice resonating with a power that made his heart race. In that dreadful moment, Nathan felt time stretch. He saw fleeting images, lost travelers, tormented souls, and every whispered story that led to this very point. The weight of history bore down on him, a mix of grief and determination. Mallory's breath hitched beside him. What be you got? She whispered desperately. A surge of clarity washed over Nathan. If we activate these runes, maybe we can harness their energy. It might push back the shadows. But what will it cost? She gasped, each word laced with uncertainty. Better to risk it than to surrender, he said, heart pounding in sync with the looming dread. He knelt beside her, focusing on the markings. As he pressed his palm against the cold ground, a pulse reverberated through him, raw and primal. The glow began to intensify, as if the symbols recognized his presence. The darkness swelled, angry and turbulent, recognizing their defiance. Mallory gasped as the shadows writhed, forming a monstrous face. It opened its maw, releasing a chilling wail that echoed through the trees, unleashing a wave of terror. Keep going. Nathan shouted, not knowing if they could withstand it. He could feel his spirit diverging from fear, merging with the strength of the ancient energies beneath. A sudden surge of warmth ignited in his hands, spreading like wildfire through him. He locked eyes with Mallory, understanding passing between them a pact forged in shared peril. The darkness roared again, and Nathan pushed deeper, channeling his fear into something more powerful. Together, they shouted, their voices rising above the chaos, but just as the symbols blazed to life, illuminating the twisted form of the darkness, Nathan felt a sudden, searing pain in his palm, a warning of what was to come. Were they truly ready? Or would the shadows claim them first? As the figure lunged toward them, fangs glinting in the burgeoning light, Nathan and Mallory braced themselves for a confrontation that would either liberate their souls or seal their fate. Could they activate the runes before it was too late? The moment Nathan and Mallory shouted together, a new energy crackled in the air, as if the universe held its breath. The markings blazed, casting a brilliant light that cut through the oppressive darkness. But the confronting figure, with eyes like coals and an array of gleaming fangs, wasn't deterred. It roared as it charged, hungry for the warmth their light emitted. Focus on the runes. Nathan yelled, feeling the pain in his palm intensify. It was as if the very symbols were siphoning his strength, unearthing his deepest fears, twisting them into a vortex of shadows. In that fragile moment, the ground trembled beneath them. The darkness writhed in rage, reaching and clawing, but the runes pulsed in response, glowing brighter with each heartbeat. Mallory, still kneeling, looked up sharply. It's feeding off you. We need to do this together. Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that something wicked lingered just beyond their immediate reality, lurking in the corners of the woods where the light couldn't reach. He gritted his teeth against the pain. Tell me what to do. Grab my hand. She shouted. We'll channel it together. We can push it back. With a quick nod, Nathan reached for her, and when their hands met, it was as if fire surged through him. The warmth spread, igniting every nerve ending, strengthening their resolve, their bond. Together, they created a bridge of energy that pulsed between them and into the symbols. The monstrous figure hesitated. It felt the rising tide of light and recoiled slightly, unsure. A flicker of fear crossed its grotesque features, revealing the hollowed visage of despair beneath the fury. Now! Mallory cried, her voice fierce. With one final push, they channeled their fear, their strength, and their intentions into the ancient runes. An explosion of light erupted from the symbols, illuminating the entire clearing, banishing the shadows momentarily. The darkness hissed in agony, and for the first time, a glimmer of panic flickered in its glowing eyes. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble violently. Branches snapped, and leaves spiraled around them like a tornado. The clearing transformed into a maelstrom of light and darkness fighting for dominance. "Nathan!" Mallory yelled, clutching his arm. "What is happening?" "I don't know." He shouted back over the fury of the wind. The pain in his palm intensified, spreading like liquid fire through his veins. "But we're breaking through. Don't let go." Just as the shadows lashed out once more, wild and furious, Nathan felt an overwhelming surge of force so powerful it threatened to shatter his very essence. Memories flashed before him, family, laughter, moments of joy mixed with pain. Was this the price he must pay? The ground beneath them split open with a deafening crack. A chasm yawned wide, glowing with the vibrant light of the runes, but it began to pull at everything, including them. Mallory's grip tightened, frail yet relentless. "Do you think we have the strength?" she gasped, fear etching her features. "We have to. It's now or never." Nathan replied through gritted teeth. As they pushed deeper into the energy of the runes, they felt the darkness clawing at them. The malevolent force shrieked in rage, a sound so raw it rattled their resolve. It was going to take everything. In that moment of clarity, Nathan realized this wasn't just about the runes or escaping the shadows. It was a battle for their very souls. Would sacrifice forge a path to salvation, or would it bind them in eternal darkness? As the pulse of the runes intensified, the shadows shuddered, and time slowed as if waiting for their final decision. Just when Nathan thought they would break through, a shadowy tendril shot forward, wrapping around Mallory's ankle. "Mallory!" He screamed, but her eyes remained locked on his, fierce and unyielding. With an agonizing wrench, the darkness pulled at her, but she kept her grip on Nathan. "Don't let go!" she shouted, her voice full of defiance. In that moment, everything hung in the balance, their fates intertwined. A decision had to be made: either channel their power for freedom, or risk losing each other to the consuming dark. Could they break the hold of the shadows before they were lost forever? The answer lingered in the charged air, thick with urgency. Would they survive the storm, or would it consume them whole? The ground roared like an angry beast, the very world beneath them soaring into chaos. Nathan felt every bone in his body vibrating, the darkness clawing at them with a tenacity that felt otherworldly. Mallory's grip remained fierce, yet the tendril tightened, snaking further up her leg, and he could see the fearful streak in her eyes. "I want to let you go," he cried, determination washing over him like a tidal wave. The runes pulsed dangerously bright, and Nathan strained against the unseen forces pulling at him. He was losing her, inch by inch, to the monstrous shadow that reveled in their despair. Suddenly, it surged forward, a grotesque whirlwind of shadows, inches away from them. It opened its mouth in an inhuman howl, the sound a mix of laughter and fury that reverberated through Nathan's chest. "Concentrate!" Mallory shouted, her face fierce despite the fear glistening in her tear-filled eyes. "Think of something that can outshine the darkness." Nathan's mind raced. A million memories cascaded around him: his childhood, the smell of fresh-cut grass, the warmth of summer days spent fishing with his father. But a single image broke through, brighter than the rest. The first time he held Mallory's hand, the flutter of their laughter dancing in the air, it anchored him. "Think of the good. Your family. Us," he shouted, pulling on every ounce of strength he could muster. Mallory nodded, her resolve solidifying like steel. "Together," they cried out, "together, we shine brighter." With a surge of energy, they poured their collective memories into the runes. The air crackled, their shared warmth igniting the glowing symbols, and a beam of pure light shot forth from their clasped hands. The darkness shrieked again, but this time it wasn't a noise of fury, it cracked with desperation, as it struggled against the overwhelming brightness that surged toward it. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the runes, the clearing exploding in a cascade of light. Nathan felt the darkness momentarily retreat, like a tide pulling back from the shore. But it was far from beaten. "Keep pushing. We're almost there," Mallory yelled, their voices harmonizing above the roaring winds. Nathan felt strength radiating from her, a force that sprouted from his heart and settled into his soul, but as they focused on the rising light, the shadows bent and twisted, forming into grotesque faces that sneered and laughed. They bore the likeness of the things Nathan feared the most: failure, loss, and darkness. He could feel anger bubbling from somewhere deep inside him, a memory of every moment he thought he was nothing. "Get away from us!" he shouted, rage fueling his veins. The figures growled back, seeming to chase him down the corridors of his mind. Each noxious laugh was jabbed like a knife, and for a moment, Nathan felt the churning in his gut of self-doubt, but Mallory's voice cut through the chaos. "Nathan! Remember that light is stronger than darkness. We have each other." With her words, something extraordinary happened. In the swift cadence of desperation, Nathan felt the swirling connection, their souls intertwining, filling the space around them with warmth and love. He took a deep breath and redirected that energy back into the runes. The white-hot surge shot through him, bringing the energy of the very stars down to the earth. It swallowed the shadows, forcing them to recoil, screaming against the power of their bond. In that vital moment, when reality seemed suspended between light and dark, Nathan pushed harder. An explosion of energy surged from them both, a blinding halo that engulfed the clearing. Then everything shattered. Splintering silence met them out of the storm as the shadows dissolved into a mist, faded echoes of fear lost among the winds. But when the dust settled, Nathan realized the ground around them was not the same. The runes had shifted, their glow dimming. Deep furrows formed on the earth, and within them pulsed a dark energy, a remnant of what had just been unleashed. "Mallory?" he breathed, dread pooling in his stomach. The tendrils were gone, but the air felt fraught with tension. "I'm here," she whispered, but her voice was faltering, eyes wide with concern. "What did we just unleash?" The chasm sliced through the ground, a reminder of their struggle but also a harbinger of the still looming threat. Something ancient and ominous stirred below, breathing its anger into the surface world. Nathan stepped forward, dread twisting in his chest. "Whatever it is, we need to face it together." As he braced himself, tension coiling in the air, a deafening growl emanated from the chasm, echoing like a warning siren in the pitch-black woods. They had won this battle, but a more profound conflict loomed. What other horrors would emerge from the shadows? The ground trembled beneath Nathan's feet, cracking open like an unholy maw. The chasm yawned wider, and smoke coiled up like the breath of a slumbering beast, thick and suffocating. Mallory stumbled back a step, instinctively seeking Nathan's shoulder for support. He could feel the warmth radiating from her as a stark contrast to the sinister chill creeping out from the fissure. "What if something comes out?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The concern in her eyes mirrored the fear coursing through him. He clenched his jaw, knowing they had awakened something they may not be able to put back to rest. "We have light on our side," Nathan replied, trying to sound brave even as his heart thudded like a war drum in his chest. "Together, we can face it." But with those words echoing in the air, the growl came again. This time, it was louder, more menacing, a sound that vibrated in his bones and clawed at the back of his mind. Shadows twisted at the edge of the chasm, expanding and contracting as if something was preparing to emerge. A horrific thought flashed through him: could this beast be a manifestation of the darkness they had fought so hard against? Had they simply made things worse? "Look!" Mallory cried, pointing into the darkness. A flicker caught his eye. A pair of glowing eyes stood out against the shadow, watching them, assessing them. Nathan's breath hitched as he felt the weight of that gaze. It promised nothing good. "Stay close," he murmured, stepping forward hesitantly. The runes shimmered faintly beneath their feet, their energy now a flickering ember rather than a blazing fire. With each step, he felt the gravity of the chasm's pull, as if the earth itself craved to swallow them whole. Mallory grasped his arm tighter, and he could sense her heart racing, mirroring his own escalating dread. The growl transformed, morphing into a guttural snarl, climbing closer as if something was clawing its way to the surface. Then the ground exploded, with a violent heave, a form erupted from the chasm, massive, swirling in shadows, and exuding pure rage. It towered over them, muscles rippling and eyes burning like molten coals. Nathan instinctively shielded Mallory, feeling her warmth beside him pierce through the blood-chilling anxiety flooding his mind. "Run!" he shouted, but the words barely left his mouth before the monster lunged forward, tendrils of darkness swirling wildly. They reached out like grasping hands, and Nathan barely had time to react. He pulled Mallory back, adrenaline pumping him forward. "This way!" Nathan urged, sprinting toward the edge of the clearing where they could find cover among the trees. But the writhing shadows followed relentlessly, snapping at their heels. Each frantic step felt like a race against fate, and Nathan could feel the pain in his legs burning, the raw terror fueling his movements. Mallory stumbled briefly but caught herself just in time, her eyes alight with fear and determination. The trees loomed closer, their trunks solid and reassuring against the chaos around them. A sudden realization struck him: they were escaping the surface, but that didn't mean they were safe. "We have to regroup, find a way to fight it," he shouted over his shoulder, his voice filled with urgency. The beast roared behind them, echoing through the night, a chilling melody of power and menace. Nathan risked a glance back, the sight searing into his memory. The creature was gaining on them, monstrous and relentless. As they reached the first tree, its bark rough and familiar, Nathan's mind raced. If darkness only learned from fear, he had to summon every ounce of courage left in him. We have to hit it where it hurts," he yelled, adrenaline coursing through him. Mallory nodded, her expression resolute. Together they took cover, breathless, and Nathan glanced at the runes, dimly flickering in the shadows of despair. The pulsing energy felt different now, as if responding to their shared determination. But how could they harness that against something so fearsome? The ground rumbled ominously beneath them. Once more, and a chilling thought crept into his mind: what if they hadn't just awakened this darkness but were now the very bait it needed to unleash its full wrath? The realization shuddered through him as he tried to concentrate, squeezing Mallory's hand, as the echoes of their enemies' growls wrapped around them like a death shroud. Was it too late to turn the tide? What price would they have to pay to reclaim the light they fought so hard to restore? And then, amidst the chaos, a new noise pierced the air. This one was unlike the others, an unmistakable voice, twisted and ancient, rising up from deep within the earth. "Welcome to your reckoning." What did it want from them? The air crackled with tension, a living entity coiling around Nathan and Mallory as they pressed against the rough bark of the tree. Silence fell momentarily, a thin veil before the storm. Nathan's heart raced, each beat a reminder that they weren't free yet. Mallory's grip tightened, her fingers digging into him as they strained to hear over the thrumming silence that followed that voice. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, her eyes darting around as if expecting the shadows to take form at any moment. "Yes, I do." Nathan's throat felt dry, barely able to form the words. The weight of that ancient voice still lingered in the air. It was mocking, delighting in their fear, and a primal urge to flee coursed through him. Suddenly, the ground erupted again, jagged rocks and dirt flipping into the air like shrapnel. Nathan instinctively reached for Mallory, pulling her closer just as a tendril slammed into the trunk of their shelter, splintering wood and sending debris flying. "What are we supposed to do?" Mallory gasped, eyes wide with terror as she struggled to catch her breath. "That thing is unstoppable." Nathan's mind raced. They needed a plan, but panic clawed at the edges. "We have the runes," he said, his voice strengthening as he remembered the flickering symbols beneath their feet. "If we could activate them somehow." The shadows twisted around the chasm, the growling voice reverberating, pulsing with anger and hunger. "You cannot hide forever. Your light is weak, your will is frail." Each word dripped with malice, and Nathan felt his resolve waver. Deep down, he wondered if the creature spoke the truth. What if they were truly powerless against this ancient darkness? "Focus!" he snapped, shaking off his doubts. We've come this far. We can't give in now. Look for a way to harness whatever power lay in the runes, he told himself. Mallory hesitated but then nodded resolutely. What do we do? Maybe we can channel our energy through them. Nathan gestured to the glowing symbols, their pulsing light revealing glimpses of his fears reflected in Mallory's wide eyes. It's risky, but what choice do we have? Before she could object, Nathan took a step toward the runes. As he did, the shadows thrashed violently, and the beast roared in fury. He could feel the weight of its presence, a malevolent force unraveling into rage. Gather your strength. He barked. Picture it, Mallory. Picture our light breaking through the darkness. We won't be here for nothing. With that, he pressed his palm against the rune, feeling its energy pulse beneath his skin, warm and inviting. Mallory joined him, placing her hand over his. It was a leap of faith, an act echoing their combined courage. A spark ignited between them, brighter than the chaos surrounding their fragile sanctuary. Suddenly, the ground shook with more violence, a warning thrumming through the air. Tendrils lashed out, reaching for them like grasping fingers desperate to pull them into their abyss. Now! Nathan yelled, pouring his will into the connection. He felt the runes react, a tremor of power surging through their hands and into the night. Light erupted from the runes, slashing through the gloom and illuminating the darkness in a brilliance that took them by surprise. The light bent, swirling around them and pushing back against the shadows, which screeched in anguish. But just as Nathan felt hope burgeoning within him, a voice, deeper and menacing, cut through with more ferocity. Your light is fleeting, the shadows are eternal. With a furious snap, the ground beneath them cracked wider, pulling at the edges of their brief reprieve. As they forced the light to grow, it became apparent that darkness wasn't just a foe. It knew them. What now? Mallory shouted over the howling wind as the shadows surged once more, threatening to drown their light. Will it be enough? But Nathan's chest tightened. They had just exposed a fraction of their strength, and yet the beast seemed unfazed, its hunger only stoked by their effort. Hold on. Don't let it pull you in. As the shadows lashed around them, Nathan realized their fight was far from over. They may have unleashed a flicker of light, but something far more sinister awaited. With darkness seeming to coalesce around them, Nathan's heart sank. What if the light was only a bait for something worse yet to come? He shouted into the void, what does it want? Desperation hung in the air, thick and suffocating, as they braced against the impending wave of shadows, but looming overhead, a new sound built amongst the chaos. It wasn't a growl or a roar, but something more visceral, a guttural growl laced with familiarity. And in that moment, Nathan knew. This battle was not just against an ancient creature, it was a battle for their very souls. Could light truly outlast the relentless shadows? What will remain when the dust settles? The shadows swirled like a tempest, threatening to bury Nathan and Mallory. Darkness pulsated and stretched, hungry and insatiable, desperate to reclaim what it lost. With every heartbeat, Nathan felt the dread sink deeper, smothering hope like a heavy fog. But in that charged moment, he had to believe. Remember, he shouted over the chaos, we shine together. As if ignited by his words, the runes beneath them flared with renewed intensity. Their warmth enveloped them, a protective veil against the encroaching void. With both hands pressed against the runes, Nathan focused, breathing through the fear that threatened to strangle him. Each pulse of light felt like a heartbeat, a reminder of life and resilience. Think of everything we hold dear. He urged Mallory, his gaze locking onto hers, the bond between them a tether against despair. Our families, our dreams, this moment together. Mallory nodded, her expression shifting from panic to resolve. Together. She echoed, and as their voices intertwined, the symbols blazed with a brilliance so profound it drowned out the shadows, carving a way through the dark. The ground trembled violently, and tendrils of darkness lashed out, snapping like whips, but they held firm. In that terrifying brilliance, the shadows twisted, yanking and raging, desperate to flee the light. In a surge of strength, Nathan called upon every cherished memory, the sound of laughter, the warmth of summer nights, love shared. With every recollection, he pushed more energy into the runes. Feel it, Mallory. Let it flow through us. The pulsing light erupted, cascading over the twisted shadows, forcing them to retreat. A deafening roar erupted from the depths, a sound that shook the very earth beneath them. You think light can conquer darkness? You are foolish. The voice slithered through the air, ancient and powerful, and yet, Nathan felt hope igniting like a wildfire. We are not just light, he shouted defiantly. We are love. We are courage. And we won't back down. With a fierce determination, Mallory clenched his hand tighter. No. This ends now. Together, they unleashed their combined strength. The light surged from the runes, enveloping the clearing, illuminating every corner of the void. It burned brighter, driving back the shadows as specters of ancient fear writhed in agony. Nathan could hear the cries of the darkness, shrieks echoing like banshees. But then, through the turmoil, one final shadow slithered forward, a grotesque figure with hollow eyes glinting like knives. You are weak, feeding into your own delusions. It roared, launching itself at them with unnatural speed. Not today. Nathan screamed, as he redirected the light toward the malevolent presence. A beam shot forth, piercing through the chaos, and struck true. The figure recoiled, the light hitting it like a hammer, and Nathan felt the ground shake not with fear, but with the eruption of awakening. This is the reckoning. You will not claim us. He yelled, each word an anchor in conviction. The shadows shuddered, and the darkness began to dissipate, retreating into nothingness with an anguished howl. The chasm rattled, the trembling earth responding to the defeat of its ancient guardian. No. Echoed as the shadows collapsed inward, drawn into the radiant pulse of light that Nathan and Mallory had forged together. Breathless, they stood amidst the dissipating gloom, the world around them transforming. The trees, once suffocated by darkness, now stood tall and proud, bathed in the warm glow of twilight. Nathan felt the chill of fear lift. They had broken its hold. Did we? Mallory whispered, her eyes wide, disbelief mingling with relief. Did we really do it? We did. Nathan replied, feeling a wave of triumph wash over them. Together. As the darkness receded completely, a crisp, sweet scent filled the air, mingling with the scent of damp earth. The shadows seemed to shimmer and dissolve like mist under the sun, leaving nothing but serenity in their wake. They had confronted the beast of their fears and emerged intact. Mallory turned to him, that infectious smile lighting her face. We faced the darkness, Nathan. And we're still here. He took her hand, squeezing it tightly, their fingers locked together in a promise. Always. In that moment, beneath the vast North Dakota sky, they found clarity of purpose. They understood now the rules hadn't been just warnings. They were lessons carved from the truth of their existence. Let us go home, Nathan said softly. They had each other, and that was enough. With the last whispers of the night retreating into the dawn, they took a step into the future, knowing the shadows could return yet unafraid, ready to meet whatever awaited, side by side, and as the first rays of sun broke over the horizon, Nathan and Mallory walked away, forging their path into the light, hand in hand. Don't forget your journey led you here. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss our next exclusive adventures. Smash that like button now to show your support and feed the algorithm. We want to hear from you. Flood the comments below with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see what happens next. Your love makes all the difference.